Hello, my name is Mariana Landaverde, and today I will be talking to you guys about child sexual abuse and how it affects your cognitive behavior. I will also be talking about some important facts as well as long-term effects and consequences and how to protect your child from child sexual abuse. So, what is child sexual abuse? Child sexual abuse is a form of child abuse that includes sexual activity with a minor. A child cannot consent to any form of sexual activity, period. When a perpetrator engages with a child this way, they are committing a crime that can have lasting effects on the victim for years. Child sexual abuse does not need to include physical contact between a perpetrator and a child. Some forms of sexual abuse include exhibitionism or exposing oneself to a minor, fondling, intercourse, masturbation, in the presence of a minor or forcing the minor to masturbate, obscene phone calls, text messages, or digital interaction, producing, owning, or sharing pornographic images or movies of children, also sex of any kind with a minor, including vaginal, oral, or anal, sex trafficking, and any other sexual conduct that is harmful to a child's mental, emotional, or physical welfare. I provided facts about child sexual abuse, and children of all ages, races, ethnicities, cultures, and economic backgrounds are vulnerable to sexual abuse. Child sexual abuse occurs in rural, urban, and suburban areas, which means it happens anywhere, not just in a certain area. Child sexual abuse affects both girls and boys in all kinds of neighborhoods and communities and in all countries around the world. Most child victims are abused by someone they know. Children are most vulnerable to sexual abuse between the ages of 7 to 13. Also, child sexual abuse involves coercion and can involve violence. The consequences of child sexual abuse are wide-ranging and varied. Girls are more likely than boys to disclose child sexual abuse, and also sexual abuse negatively and permanently affects the physical development of a child's brain. How to protect your child from sexual abuse. Sexual abuse can happen to children of any race, socioeconomic group, religion, or culture. Therefore, there is no foolproof way to protect children from sexual abuse, but there are steps you can take to reduce this risk. If something happens to your child, remember that the perpetrator is to blame, not you, and especially not the child. So first, be involved in the child's life. Be actively involved in a child's life can make warning signs of child sexual abuse more obvious and help the child feel more comfortable coming to you if something isn't right. If you see or hear something that causes concern, you can take action to protect your child. Show interest in their day-to-day lives. Ask them what they did during the day and who they did it with. Who did they sit with at lunchtime? What games did they play after school? And did they enjoy themselves? Get to know the people in your child's life. Know who your child is spending time with, including other children and adults. Ask your child about the kids that they go to school with, the parents of their friends, and other people they may encounter, such as teammates or coaches. Talk about these people openly and ask questions so that your child can feel comfortable doing the same. Next, choose caregivers carefully. Whether it's a babysitter, a new school, or an after-school activity, be diligent about screening caregivers for your child. Also, talk about the media. Incidents of sexual violence are frequently covered by the news and portrayed in television shows. Ask your child questions about this coverage to start a conversation. Questions like, have you ever heard of this happening before? Or what would you do if you were in this situation? Can signal to your child that these are important issues that they can talk about with you. Last, know the warning signs. Become familiar with the warning signs of a child's sexual abuse and notice any changes with your child, no matter how small. Whether it's happening to your child or a child you know, you have the potential to make a difference in that person's life by stepping in. Encourage children to speak up. First, teach your child about boundaries. Let your child know that no one has the right to touch them or make them feel uncomfortable. This includes hugs from grandparents or even tickling from mom or dad. It is important to let your child know that their body is their own. Just as importantly, remind your child that they do not have the right to touch someone else's if that person does not want to be touched. Teach your child how to talk about their bodies. From an early age, teach your child the names of their body parts. Teaching a child these words give them the ability to come to you when something is wrong. Learn more. Learn about talking to children about sexual assault. Also, be available. Set time aside to spend with your child where they can have your undivided attention. Let your child know that they can come to you if they have questions or if someone is talking to them in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable. If they do come to you with questions or concerns, follow through on your word and make the time to talk to them. Let them know they won't get in trouble. Many perpetrators use secret keeping or threats as a way of keeping children quiet about abuse. Remind your child frequently that they will not get in trouble for talking to you, no matter what they need to say. When they do come to you, follow through on this promise and avoid punishing them for speaking up. Also, give the chance to raise new topics. Sometimes asking direct questions like, did you have fun? And was it a good time? Won't give you the right answers you need. So give your child a chance to bring up their own concerns or ideas by asking open-ended questions like, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? What are the long-term effects of child sexual abuse? Depression, of course, is the biggest concern. Depression has been found to be the most common long-term symptom among survivors. Survivors may have difficulty in externalizing the abuse, thus thinking negatively about themselves. After years of negative self-thoughts, survivors have feelings of worthlessness and avoid others because they believe they had nothing to offer. They also experience feelings down much of the time, having suicidal ideation, having disturbed sleeping patterns, and having disturbed eating patterns. Survivors often experience guilt, shame, and self-blame. It has been shown that survivors frequently take personal responsibility for the abuse. When the sexual abuse is done by an esteemed, trusted adult, it may be hard for the child to view the perpetrator in a negative light, thus leaving them incapable of seeing what happened as not their fault. Survivors often blame themselves and internalize negative messages about themselves. Also, survivors tend to display more self-destruction behaviors and experience more suicidal ideation than those who have not been abused. Body issues and eating disorders have also been cited as a long-term effect of child sexual abuse. The symptoms of child sexual abuse survivors' body image problems to be related to feeling dirty or ugly, dissatisfaction with body or appearance, eating disorders, and obesity. Women survivors reported significantly more medical concerns and than did people who have not experienced sexual abuse. The most frequent medical complaint was pelvic pain. Somatization symptoms among survivors are often related to pelvic pain, gastrointestinal problems, headaches, and difficulty swallowing. Stress and anxiety are often long-term effects of child sexual abuse. Childhood sexual abuse can be frightening and cause stress long after the experience have ceased. Many times survivors experience chronic anxiety, tension, anxiety attacks, and phobias. The study revealed that childhood sexual abuse is traumatizing and can result in symptoms comparable to symptoms from war-related trauma. Disassociation for survivors of childhood sexual abuse may include feelings of confusion, feelings of disorientation, nightmares, flashbacks, and difficulty experiencing feelings. Denial and repression of sexual abuse is believed by some to be a long-term effect of childhood sexual abuse. Symptoms may include experiencing amnesia concerning parts of their childhood, negating and the effects of impact of sexual abuse, and feeling that they should forget about the abuse. Whether or not survivors can forget past childhood sexual abuse experiences and later recover those memories is a controversial topic. Some therapists believe that sexual abuse can cause enough trauma that the victim forgets or represses the experience as a coping mechanism. Also, others believe that recovered memories are false or that the client is led to create them. Survivors of sexual abuse may experience difficulty in establishing interpersonal relationships. Symptoms correlated with childhood sexual abuse may hinder the development and growth of relationships. Common relationship difficulties that survivors may experience are difficulties with trust, fear, or intimacy, fear of being different or weird, difficulty establishing interpersonal boundaries, passive behaviors, and getting involved in abusive relationships. Also, many survivors experience sexual difficulties. The long-term effects of the abuse include avoiding, fearing, or lacking interest in sex, approaching sex as an obligation, experiencing negative feelings such as anger, disgust, or guilt with touch, having difficulty becoming aroused or feeling sensation, feeling emotional distant or not present during sex, experiencing intrusive or disturbing sexual thoughts and images, engaging in compulsive or inappropriate sexual behaviors, experiencing difficulty establishing or maintaining an intimate relationship, also experiencing vaginal pain or orgasm difficulties, and experiencing erectile, ejaculatory, or orgasm difficulties. This does not mean every child who has experienced abuse will necessarily present with symptoms. However, there is ample evidence that sexual abuse is damaging and warrants intensive and specialized interventions to stop the abuse and prevent generations of future victims. What is a treatment for child sexual abuse? Well, there are several types of counseling, such as psychotherapy. Psychotherapy aids at the first model of a healthy relationship for many victims of sexual abuse. This treatment can offer a model of healing, nurturing relationships where the client can discover to experience trust. Psychotherapy also provides a client with an opportunity to rework the trauma into a healthier sense of self. Cognitive behavior therapy, also known as CBT, it's therapy for PTSD that focuses on teaching clients how to identify, evaluate, and reframe the dysfunctional cognitions related to the specific trauma and its sequelae that contribute to the intense negative emotions and behavioral reactions. CBT includes a range of approaches that have been shown to be effective in treating post-traumatic stress disorder. Cognitive behavioral methods have also demonstrated to be significantly effective in demonstrating positive outcomes with child sexual abuse victims and children and adult survivors. CBT methods stem from the central principle that an individual's cognitions play a significant and primary role in the development and maintenance of emotional and behavioral responses to life situations. Group therapy has been identified as a treatment of choice when working with sexual abuse adolescents. Groups create an environment where survivors of sexual abuse can meet and interact with other individuals who faced with similar presenting problems. Group therapy provides benefits beyond that individual therapy is able to provide by increasing empowerment and psychological well-being. Group therapy provides a supportive environment that facilitates the development of trust, hence leading to the ability to connect with others. Distortions in thinking and negative self-images are confronted and are substituted with views of self-thought that are nurturing and self-accepting. The major strength of support group is commonality. Many clients find it easier to share their personal experience with others who have gone through similar abuse, which assists in diminishing the underlying shame that tends to exist with sexual abuse. Victim advocacy offers a form of emotional support for the victim, whether it's accompanying them to the court or just talking to them about different things that doesn't involve the incident. They also offer victims with information about different options available to them and support victims' decision making. Advocates are committed to maintaining the highest possible levels of confidentiality in their communication with victims. Last, art therapy is a form of expressive therapy that uses the creative process of making art to improve a person's physical, mental, and emotional well-being. The creative process involves in expressing oneself artistically that can help people to resolve issues as well as develop and manage their behaviors and feelings. It can also reduce their stress and improve self-esteem and awareness. Art therapy can achieve different things for different people. It can be used for counseling by therapists, healing, treatment, rehabilitation, psychotherapy, and in the broad sense of the term, it can be used to massage one's inner self in a way that may provide the individual with deeper understanding to him or herself. Warning signs. I did provide a lot of warning signs because a lot of children show different kind of things, but some of the warning signs may include acting out in an inappropriate sexual way with toys or objects, nightmares, sleeping problems, becoming withdrawn or very clingy, becoming unusually secretive, sudden unexplained personality changes, mood swings, and seeming insecure, regressing to young behaviors such as bedwetting, unaccountable fear of particular places or people, outbursts of anger, changes in eating habits, new adult words for body parts and no obvious source, talk of a new older friend and unexplained money or gifts, self-harm such as cutting, burning, or other harmful activities, physical signs such as unexplained soreness or bruises around genitals or mouth, sexually transmitted diseases or pregnancy, also running away and not wanting to be alone with a particular child or younger person. Children often show us rather than telling us that something is upsetting them. There may be many reasons for changes in their behavior, but if we notice a combination of warning signs, it may be time to call for help or advice. It's not always easy to spot sexual abuse because perpetrators often take steps to hide their actions. Some signs are easier to spot than others. For instance, some warning signs might be noticed by a caretaker or a parent and are often red flags, but that the child needs medical attention. Listen to your instincts. If you notice something that isn't right or someone is making you uncomfortable, even if you can't put your finger on why, it is important to talk to your child. So I provided some more facts. 1 in 10 children will be sexually abused before the age of 18. 90% of child sexual abuse victims know their abuser. Children who are sexually abused, 20% are abused before the age of 8. A history of child sexual abuse increases the chance of dropping out of school. Only 4 to 8% of child sexual abuse reports are fabricated, and also use of alcohol or drugs at an early age can be a sign of trauma, such as child sexual abuse. Okay, so now perpetrators. I provide a little pie chart. As you can see, the biological father is a lot higher than the rest. Those who molest children look and act just like everyone else. There are people who have or will sexually abuse children in churches, schools, and youth sports leagues. Abusers can be neighbors, friends, and family members. People who sexually abuse children can be found in families, schools, churches, recreation centers, youth sports leagues, and other places such as children gatherings, anywhere really. Significantly, abusers can be and often are other children. Only 10% of sexually abused children are abused by a stranger. Also, approximately 30% of children who are sexually abused are abused by family members. The younger the victim, the more likely it is that the abuser is a family member. One of those molesting a child under 6, 50% were family members. Family members also accounted for 23% of those abusing children ages 12 to 17. About 60% of children who are sexually abused are abused by the people in the family, at the family trust. So it's very unfortunate. Risk factors. Perpetrators report that they look for passive, quiet, troubled, lonely children from single parents or broken homes. Perpetrators frequently seek out children who are particularly trusting and work proactively to establish a trusting relationship before abusing them. Not infrequently, this intends to establishing a trusting relationship with the victim's family as well. A poor child parent relationship increases the child's risk of being sexually abused, which increases the likelihood of the child using masturbation and sex as a coping strategy later in life. The use of sex is a coping strategy that has been correlated with adult sexual aggression, and when coupled with conditioning processes that reinforce sexual deviancy, that makes sexual offending more likely. Family structure is the most important risk factor in child sexual abuse because children who live with two married biological parents are a low risk for abuse. The risk increases when children live with a step parent or a single parent. Children living without either parent, such as living in a foster home, they are 10 times more likely to be sexually abused than children that live with both biological parents. Children who live with a single parent that has a live-in partner are at the highest risk because they are 20 times more likely to be victims of child sexual abuse than children living with both biological parents. Race and ethnicity are an important factor also and that are identified as sexual abuse. African American children have almost twice the risk of sexual abuse than white children. Children of Hispanic ethnicity have a slighter greater risk than a non-Hispanic white children. When, where, and how does this child sexual abuse happen? Well, many establish a trusting relationship with the victim's family in order to gain access to the child, which means they use the grooming process. Perpetrators enjoy successfully inappropriate comments and increasing inappropriate touches and behaviors so insidious that the abuse is often well underway before the child recognizes the situation as sexual or inappropriate. Strategies employed to gain the compliance of the victim include the addition of withdrawal or inducements, such as getting their attention, material goods, and privileges. This misinterprets of society's morals and standards and/or the abusive acts themselves, and externalizes the responsibility for the abuse onto the victim. 35% of convicted child molesters use threats of violence to keep children from disclosing the abuse. General threats and physical force are also used to prevent detection. Most sexual abuse for children occur in a residence, typically the house of the victim or the perpetrator. 85% of sexual victimization of children under age of 12 occurs in a residence. Even older children are most likely to be assaulted in a residence. 71% of sexual assaults on children aged 12 to 17 occur in a residence as well. So I provided some more long-term consequences of child sexual abuse. Child sexual abuse is the root of many societal problems. If we examine each of the common individual consequences of child sexual abuse in light of the prevalence rate, we can see how child sexual abuse has ramifications for each and every one of us. The direct cost of mental health is more than 97% billion annually in 2010. Indirect cost add another 110 billion or more annually in 2010. If child sexual abuse victims have a double risk for mental health conditions, logic suggests that child sexual abuse is responsible for annual mental health costs for at least 20 billion. Child sexual abuse plays an important role in the cost of mental health services, as said earlier. Teen pregnancies a major risk factor, and over-sexualized behavior that is really common for child sexual abuse victims and can lead to an increased risk of sexually transmitted diseases. Taking action. There are a few problems that can leave a family feeling more hopeless than sexual. Hope emerges from the basic belief in the goodness of people and their ability to change. Most treatment programs have as their foundation a belief that families can and will with help and hard work, eradicate sexual abuse from their family. It's not always easy to identify child sexual abuse, and it can be even more challenging to step in if you suspect something isn't right. If a child tells you that something makes you uncomfortable, even if they can't tell you anything specific, listen. Talk to someone who can help you figure out if this is something that must be reported, such as a staff member from your local sexual service provider. But in the meantime, if you are the parent or have influence over the child's schedule, avoid putting the child in a potential unsafe situation. I provided some resources here that occur in the state of New Mexico for children. One is a victim assistance hotline, which is 575-647-8553, and it's open, I believe, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the district attorney office, and you can speak to a victim advocate from Monday to Friday. Also, it is created to assist with the trauma and the burden suffered by those as a result of a commission of a crime. There's also the Kid Talk Warm Line, which is Monday through Thursday from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. On Fridays is 3 p.m. through midnight, Saturday is 10 a.m. through midnight, and Sunday is 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Kid Talk offers children to talk to someone and provide a safe place for a child to reach out where someone will listen and offer non-judgmental or unconditional support. This service empowers and provides resources for children to take control of their circumstances and have a role in overcoming their concerns. Also, La Piñon Therapeutic Counseling. This is the outpatient therapeutic counseling for sexual assault survivors and their family. Their family is facilitated by licensed professional clinical counselors with extensive experience in sexual assault and trauma-related issues. Also, I provided the New Mexico Crisis Line, which is a toll-free access number that is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it is very helpful. It's this Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline is dedicated to the prevention of child abuse. It's the U.S. and Canada. The hotline is staffed 24 hours a day. As said earlier, I believe it provides over 170 languages, and the hotline also offers crisis intervention information and referrals to thousands of emergency social service and support resources. All calls are confidential. Thank you so much for your time. I hope this really helped, and let's help end child sexual abuse.